There's a skull in the Penn Museum that should not exist. It is 5,000 years old, from a site called Hazanlu in Iran. A paleoanthropologist named Janet Mons examined its teeth closely. She found them straight, white, and perfectly symmetrical across the arch. The jaw was wide, with every tooth seated comfortably in position. Wisdom teeth sat in the back row, without crowding anything. No decay anywhere and no sign that any intervention had ever been needed. 5,000 years without a dentist, and the teeth are flawless. Now consider any modern skull from the last 100 years. The jaw is narrow with teeth packed against each other sideways. Impacted wisdom teeth press into molars that have nowhere to go. An orthodontist's entire career sits frozen in that bone. Same species with the same number of teeth, but a completely different face. The question that should bother you is not why ancient teeth were straight. It is why ours stopped being straight within just a few centuries, and why nobody in the dental profession seems interested in answering. 10 million wisdom teeth are pulled from American mouths every year. 5 million people, $3 billion for teeth that used to fit. A peer-reviewed study published in the American Journal of Public Health concluded that 60% of those extractions are medically unnecessary. 60%. That is 6 million teeth removed from healthy jaws annually for no verified clinical reason. The study's author, Jay Friedman, a retired general dentist, called a public health hazard. He published this in 2007. Almost 20 years ago. Nothing changed. The extractions continued. The revenue continued. Over 11,000 people per year suffer permanent nerve damage from a procedure most of them did not need. But here is what makes this more than a dental issue. The teeth did not change. The jaw did. Daniel Lieberman is an evolutionary biologist. At Harvard, he has spent decades examining human skulls, thousands of them, from every continent, spanning hundreds of thousands of years. In his book, The Story of a Human Body, he described what he found. Hunter-gatherer skulls had nearly perfect dental health. Roomy jaws, smooth arches, every tooth in place. Pre-industrial farmer skulls showed more cavities and infections, but fewer than 5% had impacted wisdom teeth. Then the modern skulls. Lieberman called them a dentist's nightmare. Crowded teeth, infections, roughly 1 in 4 with impacted molars. A Stanford evolutionist named Richard Klein confirmed the same pattern. He said he had personally never seen an early human skull with crooked teeth, not one, across his entire career. This is not fringe theory. This is Harvard and Stanford. This is published, peer-reviewed, independently replicated science. The archaeological record is not ambiguous about this. For most of human history, your jaw was wide enough for all 32 teeth. Then, in a geological instant, it was not. A comparison of 146 medieval Norwegian skulls against modern skulls measured the difference precisely. In the medieval sample, 36% showed need for orthodontic treatment. In the modern sample, 65%. The jaw shrank. The teeth stayed the same size. And instead of asking what shrank the jaw, we built an industry to rearrange the teeth. A Cleveland dentist understood this almost a century ago. His name was Weston A. Price. In the early 1930s, Price left his practice and spent the next decade traveling to isolated communities around the world, Swiss mountain villages, Scottish island settlements, indigenous peoples across North and South America, Polynesian islanders, African tribal communities, Australian Aboriginal groups. He was looking for something specific. He wanted to understand why his patients' teeth were failing while people in remote populations had perfect dental health. He documented what he found with meticulous photographs and nutritional analyses, published it in 1939 in a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. What Price discovered was unsettling in its consistency. Every isolated group eating traditional food had wide dental arches, straight teeth, virtually no cavities, robust immune systems, strong bone structure, and every group that had recently adopted processed Western food. Sugar, white flour, canned goods, vegetable oils showed the opposite. Narrow faces, crowded, teeth, rampant decay, increased susceptibility to disease. The photographs are difficult to argue, with two girls from the same Seminole tribe. One raised on the traditional diet has a wide, symmetrical face with perfectly aligned teeth. The other, born to parents who had already switched to modern food, has a narrowed face and crowded dental arch. Same genetics, same tribal lineage, 1 generation apart. 1 generation. That is the detail that changes everything. This was not slow evolutionary drift. This was immediate environmental response. The jaw narrowed in a single generational cycle. Price's nutritional analyses showed that traditional diets provided at least 4 times the mineral content and 10 times the fat-soluble vitamins of the modern Western diet. He argued that nutritional deficiency was reshaping human facial structure in real time. Now, Price's work carries baggage. His methodology has been criticized. He made relatively brief visits to some communities. The foundation that bears his name promotes claims that extend beyond his original evidence. Some of his conclusions about nutrition were oversimplified for complexity of what he observed. If you look him up, you will find legitimate criticism. I want to be honest about that, because dismissing this evidence would be easy and intellectually lazy, but so would dismissing the criticism. The Steelman case against Price is that he was a dentist, not an anthropologist, working with limited tools in the 1930s, drawing conclusions from observational data that lacked controlled methodology. Fair enough, but here is why that does not close the case. Every core finding Price documented has been independently confirmed by researchers who never reference his work. Robert Corricini, an emeritus anthropology professor at Southern Illinois University, studied Etruscan remains from pre-Roman Italy, children's skulls, perfectly straight teeth, wide jaws. He then studied genetically similar populations in modern settings and found dramatic differences in facial development that correlated entirely with diet and lifestyle. He called malocclusion a disease of civilization. A study of younger Australian Aborigines provided one of the most striking illustrations. Families who had recently adopted processed modern food were examined across generations. The younger members who grew up eating Western diets had measurably smaller jaws and severe tooth crowding. The older members who had been raised on traditional food had wide arches and aligned teeth. Same families, same genes. The only variable was what they chewed. Sandra Kahn, a dentist affiliated with Stanford, and Paul Ehrlich, the Bing professor of population studies at Stanford, published a peer-reviewed paper in the journal Bioscience in 2020. They coined a term for what they found. They called it the jaw epidemic. Their research established that the shift was too rapid for genetic change. It had to be environmental. They also documented something most people never connect to their teeth. When jaws shrink, airways narrow. The tongue has less room. It falls backward during sleep, partially blocking the throat. Obstructive sleep apnea, a condition linked to heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cognitive decline, traces directly to the same underdeveloped jaw. The jaw epidemic is not just cosmetic. It is respiratory. It is cardiovascular. It is neurological. And it started with food. A study published in PLOS One in 2015 analyzed 292 archaeological skeletons from the Levant, Anatolia, and Europe, dating from 28,000 to 6,000 years ago. The researchers found measurable jaw restructuring that coincided precisely with the adoption of agriculture. Softer food, less chewing, smaller jaws. The mechanism is straightforward. A London orthodontist named Mike Mew estimated that modern humans use their chewing muscles at roughly 3 to 5% of what our Paleolithic ancestors did, 3 to 5%. Your jaw was engineered for roots and raw meat and fibrous tubers. You are feeding it oatmeal and sandwich bread, and your face is responding exactly as Bone responds to disuse. It is shrinking. I spent 2 weeks with this research before I could write a word, not because the evidence was weak, because it was too strong. The archaeological record, the nutritional science, the anthropological fieldwork, the peer-reviewed confirmation, it all pointed in the same direction. The jaw shrank because the diet changed, and the timeline was fast enough, 1 to 2 generations, that the cause should be obvious to anyone looking. So I kept asking myself a question that held me up. If the science is this clear, why does your orthodontist still treat crooked teeth like a genetic lottery? Harvard confirmed it. Stanford confirmed it. Bioscience and PLOS One published the data. The mechanism is understood and replicated globally, yet every pediatric dental visit ends with a treatment plan instead of a dietary recommendation. The answer, when I finally let myself follow it, was the part that troubled me most. The global orthodontics market was valued at approximately $9 billion in 2025. Industry projections place it between 20 and 38 billion by 2034. That is just braces and aligners. Align Technology, the company behind Invisalign, reported nearly $1 billion in revenue in a single quarter, first quarter of 2025 alone. Add in the $3 billion spent annually on wisdom teeth extraction. Add in the treatment costs for TMJ disorders, which stem directly from jaw underdevelopment. Add in the sleep apnea devices, the corrective surgeries, the cosmetic dental procedures that exist downstream of the same shrunken jaw. You are looking at a combined economic pipeline, measured in tens of billions of dollars annually, all flowing from a single source, a jaw that no longer fits its own teeth. The food industry changed your diet. The dental industry sells you the correction, and the science connecting the two has been publicly available since 1939. This is not a conspiracy. I want to be careful with that word because it implies coordination, and what I see here is something different, something that might be worse. It is a system where every participant profits from not connecting the dots. The processed food companies have no incentive to acknowledge that their products reshape children's faces. The orthodontic industry has no incentive to promote prevention over treatment. The academic institutions have no incentive to overhaul training programs that have produced revenue-generating practitioners for decades. Nobody sat in a room and planned this. Nobody had to. The economics do the work by themselves. The cause is profitable. The cure is profitable. And the connection between them just sits in medical journals, untouched. You carry the evidence in your own mouth. Run your tongue along your teeth right now. Feel the crowding, the slight overlap, the wisdom teeth that were pulled or the ones pressing against your molars that probably should be. Now think about your great-grandparents. If you have old family, photographs, look at their faces. The generation before processed food dominated the American table, before formula replaced breastfeeding for the majority, before baby food came in squeeze. Pouches and cereal dissolved on contact. Were their jaws wider? Were their faces broader? In most families, they were. Monge, the Penn Museum paleoanthropologist, pointed to the Industrial Revolution as the inflection point. When women entered textile mills, they could not bring their infants. Breastfeeding duration collapsed. The muscular effort of nursing at the breast shapes, of developing jaw in ways that bottle feeding does not. The tongue presses a palate during breastfeeding, widening it. Bottle-fed babies miss that mechanical signal entirely. Combine shorter breastfeeding with softer weaning foods, and you have a generation of jaws that never received the developmental input they required. The proof is not buried in a museum basement. It is in your family album. It is in the shape of your own face. Compared to the people who came before you, multiple practicing dentists have reported that in 4 years of dental school and 3 years of orthodontic residency, Weston Price's name was never mentioned. Not once. Not to teach his methods. Not even to refute them. The man whose finding predicted the jaw epidemic 80 years before it was formally named simply does not exist in the curriculum that trains the people who treat its consequences. The standard orthodontic approach remains extraction. Pull for premolars. Pull for wisdom teeth. Remove 25% of all teeth to accommodate the jaw rather than expand the jaw to accommodate the teeth. The bioscience paper from 2020 stated it directly. Shrunken jaws are not being viewed as a medical issue of major consequence, but rather as a cosmetic concern. A species-wide alteration of facial structure, visible in the skull record within 2 centuries, confirmed by researchers at the world's most respected institutions, affecting billions of people, dismissed as cosmetic. They are not hiding the research. That is what unsettles me. The research is published, freely accessible, cited in major journals. It is just that nobody with the power to change clinical practice has any financial reason to read it. The orthodontist who shifts to prevention loses patience. The food company that reformulates loses shelf stability. The dental school that restructures its curriculum threatens the career model it has built for half a century. So the research sits, cited but not applied, confirmed but not acted upon, available to anyone who searches for it, ignored by everyone who profits from its absence. Your great-grandparents did not need braces. Their teeth fit because their jaws grew to their full potential. Their jaws grew because their food demanded it. The chewing, the nutrient, density, the mechanical stress on developing bone, all of it shaped a face that could hold 32 teeth without intervention. Then the food changed, and within 1 generation, the face changed with it. The jaw narrowed, the teeth crowded, the wisdom teeth impacted, and instead of reversing the cause, we monetized the symptom. Braces became a rite of passage. Wisdom teeth removal became routine. A $9 billion industry grew around a problem that did not exist 200 years ago. It treats a condition that every skull in every museum on every continent proves was never supposed to happen. So, why does your dentist show you a treatment plan and never mention what you eat? Why do pediatric guidelines monitor crowding without addressing chewing? Why is a problem with a known environmental cause treated exclusively with mechanical intervention? Why is prevention, the single approach that addresses the root cause, absent from nearly every clinical encounter? The skulls answered this question a century ago. The science confirmed it decades ago. The financial incentive to ignore both has only grown since. Your jaw was supposed to be bigger. Your teeth were designed to fit. The evidence for what changed is not missing. It is just not profitable to acknowledge. A 5,000-year-old skull has better teeth than most of the people reading this. No toothpaste, no floss, no specialist, just a jaw that was allowed to become what was meant to be. The question is not whether we know what went wrong. We know. Published, replicated, peer-reviewed. We know. The question is who benefits from making sure that knowledge never reaches a chair where you sit with your mouth open, waiting to be told what your teeth need next.